Hi everyone, it's Sunday, the first Sunday in January 2020. Happy New Year. And a lot of things change quickly. This could be you next coming up. Her name's Amy Gonzalez. And I think I know there's many, but one of the most relevant things to me in this case is that it is setting a precedent. It's trying to set a precedent across our country for this crazy law. And they call it case law, which to me is the same thing as evolution. It's lies built upon lies for generations. And I think that's what this case is all about, is setting a precedent in case law about what's the stupid charge? Cyberstalking?
Interstate cyberstalking.
Yeah, so there you go. Here, tune in yourself and see what you think. Do your own research and let us know if you think she's innocent. And if you do, write her a postcard and tell her you're praying for her. And please pray for her. Thank you. Bye.
And here's our first phone call with Amy Gonzalez. Sentenced to life in prison as the first person in America convicted of interstate cyberstalking. She's being held accountable for the crime of her dad.
You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. This call is from Amy Gonzalez, an inmate at a federal prison. This call is being recorded and is subject to monitoring. Hang up to decline the call or to accept. Dial 5 now. If you wish to...
God bless you, sister. Thank you for calling.
Oh, Erin, God bless you too. Thank you so much for picking up. I'm so glad to hear your voice.
No problem. How long do you have, sister?
About 15 minutes and then the phone hangs up.
Okay, yep, it's pretty standard around here. Just checking.
Yes.
Hey, Amy, how you doing? This is Rudy, too.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Rudy. How are you doing?
Hey, we're doing good, and I used to say, how you doing, for all the prisoners that would call, but I feel like that's a silly question for people stuck in a hellhole prison. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, God bless you both. Thank you so much. Thank you for your love and your support. We appreciate it so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The more I learn about your case, I just think it's absolutely egregious and shocking. Matter of fact, I just got feedback. It's almost incredible, the timing, but somebody sent some of the documents that you've been mailing me to a lawyer. And keep in mind, I'm the last guy in the world to ever quote a lawyer because I don't have any lawyer friends. But here's what they said, and I'm not at liberty to even say his name or anything. But
Right.
I just want to read to you his response, if I could.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah. He said this is guilt by association. Who defended this woman? It is an open and shut case of innocence. Or if the statute is so overbroad, why didn't the lawyer bring a constitutional challenge motion at trial? Is there a movement of outraged people who are willing to step up to save this woman? How about a presidential pardon? What do you think can be done? This makes my blood boil. And like I said, I'm the last person in the world to quote lawyers. I don't have any lawyer friends, but that guy seems to, at least that one lawyer seems to get it.
Wow. Thank you. That just brings tears to my eyes. Thank you, Rudy.
This call is from a federal prison.
That's why I said it's so hard to be in prison, first of all, but then so hard to be in prison that when you are not guilty, it makes it even harder. And to fight every day of your life, you wake up every morning fighting for your freedom, and you go to bed every night fighting for your freedom, and that's just how you live, and that's no way to live.
Yeah.
It's a lot, and just my brother just fighting because he just wanted to be a dad. That's all. He just wanted to love his kids to be a dad.
Right.
And unfortunately, my dad went the other way, and we all wound up in here. And it just, they never brought any charges against any of us until my dad did what he did, and that just seems so tragic to me because I would think that you would have to have criminal intentions in order to wind up being convicted, but it doesn't seem that way in this country, and that's what breaks my heart. I always tell my daughter, ever since she was a little girl, I say, God gave you a mouth and you use it, but don't you ever use it to backtalk your mama or your daddy.
Yep.
And don't you ever use it to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And I never intended to cause any harm to my sister-in-law, to my nieces, or to anybody else ever in a million years. I just wanted to put out there to try to get them help. And I know some people look at it like it was wrong, but my intentions were from the heart, and they weren't to cause anybody harm or to harass anyone ever in a million years.
Yeah. Well, Amy, I got to say, you passed 2 lie detector polygraph tests that indicated whether it was true or not, that can be debated by the people on the outside, but you believed, and you passed lie detectors that you believed that the children were being abused and even sexually abused. And so in your mind, that certainly was the case, because you and your mother passed 2 lie detector tests. And for those that may not know, your mother has died in prison. What year did she die in prison? Do you mean?
My mother actually died Mother's Day weekend 2016. And what's really sad is how the prison system works with the email communication system. It's behind a few days. So for my brother and I to communicate, it's really hard. So I was with my mother the whole 3 years that we've been incarcerated. We were in the same cell together, and we were able to, have time together until she got sick. She wound up coming to Carswell, and then I came maybe a month or so later. And the weekend that she had passed away, like I said, was Mother's Day weekend, and my brother was still sending me emails, to tell my 2 favorite girls Happy Mother's Day, and he didn't know that my mom had already passed away.
Wow.
So he's sending me emails saying, tell Mom Happy Mother's Day, and I'm sending him emails that Mom has passed away and you need to know. And it was just really hard, because for him not to know that and then to just still get emails saying, tell her Happy Mother's Day, it was really heartbreaking.
Yeah, I can imagine that, Amy. And I've also had to receive phone calls from prisoners on death row that are telling me to reach out to their friends who have supported them for years. And unfortunately, I'm aware of knowledge that their friends have passed away because of a heart attack, and that's been happening like a week ago. So I understand the delay in communication is very, very difficult. One thing I want to share with you, I know this 15 minutes is going to go by so quick, Amy, but one thing I want to share with you is that your prosecutors, and I'm going to share, I'm a little biased, and I admit that, but I have seen them, our criminal justice system has gone so off the rails that your prosecutors, they went out and had a celebratory dinner after they put you in prison for the rest of your life. And don't underestimate how evil these people are. These are godless people. They need you to be a monster. In other words, they have to paint you as a monster. And if you're not a monster, then they don't get their financial bonuses. They don't get the prestige that comes with their career. And so they're going to hire people to counter whatever you have to say, whatever you, I want you to be able to tell the truth when you call us, and I want you to be able to repeat the truth when you send us core links. But you know that there are people that are going to paint you in the worst light possible and use everything at their disposal to do that.
Oh, I expect that.
Yeah.
And it's okay, because you know what? God is my judge.
Amen.
And I get that.
Amen.
The truth will set me free, and God is my judge.
Amen. Well, from everything I've learned, and you certainly have people that are in our circle, of our social circle, that are starting to look at this case, that why in the world are you and David in prison for something that your dad did? I think, your brother quoted scripture. I certainly believe in scripture. Ezekiel 18:20, the son shall not bear the iniquity of the father. And, I want to say that I think Noelle, who I believe is just a sincere seeker of truth, when she started to look at your case, she initially typed in your name, an interstate cyberstalker, the first one convicted in America, along with your brother and your mother. And she came across the 77-page appeal document. And of course, that document has nothing positive about you. It paints your family as monsters. And Noelle was saying, and I wanted to play for you so you could hear the sincerity of Noel's voice, but I'm concerned, Amy, that if I do that, the prison will use that as ammunition to cut off our phone conversations, and I don't want to give them any ammunition. So I'm not going to do that, but I'll just tell you what I'll tell you what she said. As she's reading this appeal document, she's asking if the trial transcripts are available. I don't know if that's is the case electronically, but that's just something to consider. And then, obviously, you and your mother believe there was abuse happening. You mentioned that you saw, the children fighting the dogs for food. And what Noel had said is that some of that stuff on that John Bonet webpage is so over the top for most people to get a handle on about, CB. I'll just refer to her as CB. And I respect, the people that have been murdered in this case. And so, but if CB was threatening to sell children to pedophiles and making the children fight for food, and at a very young age, knowing what a G-spot is or the lollipop game, and some of these things aren't pleasant to talk about, but that sounds so over the top for regular people to believe. But it doesn't for Erin. Erin's saying she totally believes it, but I'm just saying the regular person on the street that that looks like it's a slanderous website. And what would your response be to Noelle and her comment about after she read that website, it just seemed like it was too much? And is there any corroborating evidence beyond your lie detector test, or is there anybody outside of your family that could also bring forth testimony that this lady had like some serious problems?
Well, I know, my husband could corroborate the things that my niece had said to him.
This call is from a federal prison.
I have some aunts and uncles that have been in the house where, my sister-in-law was not, how do you want to say it? Not very attentive to the children.
Yeah.
Mostly other people that I have told my suspicions, my stories, what I've seen, what I've heard. Off the top of my head, I can't come up with anything else right now, but if I think of anything,
okay,
I will definitely let you know.
No, I understand. And, from the main thing from my perspective, you passed 2 lie detector tests, and so did your mother. So you believed it, right? And in your mind, that was driving factor. Now, whether the bottom line is about the abuse. In my mind, the whole thing boils down to did you and your brother and your mother, were you aware and in on the plan to murder Christine Belford and Laura Mulford? And haven't seen any evidence.
Absolutely not.
It's like you're being held for the crime of your dad. And you want to elaborate on this note that they make a big deal about, where your dad said, "Let's celebrate to CB's last day"? What's the nature of that? Was that a note left on the table, or how did that go?
It was a note that a lot of times I know my dad's somebody that rants and raves all the time. He rants and raves about the government. He rants and raves about everything, and that's just how my dad was. So
yeah,
I would take a note, I'd read it, and I'd throw it in a drawer, or I'd take a note and I read it, and I think actually this one was in my file cabinet. Okay, I read it, and it had other things, I'm sure, on it. I can't actually remember. I don't know if I'm sure it's in my trial transcripts or in the evidence, but I'm sure there was more to that letter than the part that is just read. Like I said, when you have a story, you have the beginning, the middle, and the end, and the government only likes to show you the middle of the story.
Right.
But with this letter, you were on spot when you responded.
Yeah.
Why would you wind up celebrating the end of somebody's life? Me, never.
Right.
Okay, and that's not how I took that letter. I took it as like, oh, he's just ranting and raving. Okay, but I took it as like, okay, my brother was trying to get his parental rights back. He had filed a petition for nunc-pro-tunc, which is trying to go back to the very beginning to get his conviction for the kidnapping, looked at again and get his 2255 appeals done. And he was trying to get his termination of parental rights reversed so that way he can be a dad again. And I was looking at it when I read that as, hey, okay, it's your final days of being, the sole guardian of the children. That my brother's going to get his rights back again. Because we've always been positive people. We've always been hopeful. We've always looked at, okay, let's look at each other saying, yes, we can wind up overcoming this, and we can be a family again.
Right.
We've always encouraged my brother to try to keep fighting, because absolutely. Well, like I said, what's the difference in this country, the bad thing is when you kidnap a child, if you're the father, if you take the child away from the mother to protect them, it's kidnapping. But in this country, if it's a woman that takes the children away from the father to protect them from the father, it's considered domestic abuse. You know, that the
Right.
mother or the father domestically abusing, and there's no charges that are filed because that's okay for the woman to do. And I'm a woman saying this.
Right. No,
You know,
that's a very good point. That's a very good point. And what Noelle had said in regards to that note, because the note was a big stickler for Noelle, and she thinks it'll be a big stickler for other people. But what she
Right.
said is that the prosecution painted that as a correspondence, like it was some back and
Absolutely.
forth. But it was a back and forth exchange between you and your father. But you're saying it was just a note left for
It
you.
was one letter.
And yeah, it was just one letter. And I would say, like,
letter.
if somebody says in Texas, let's celebrate to the last days of Nancy Pelosi, you could take that a lot of different ways. That doesn't mean
Absolutely.
that you're clued in to the inner workings of the mind of your dad, that he's going to go off and murder somebody. You had no,
Absolutely.
that doesn't mean you had a clue on what he's thinking and what do you.
Not at all.
And for you to spend the rest of your life in prison because your dad left you one letter that,
Absolutely.
was a vague meaning, it's just absurd. And so,
Absolutely.
Country did he take the
That's
children?
why I said when I send you my father's supposed alleged suicide note, you're going to look at it and you're going to say, "Are you serious?" Because I've showed it to people and they're like, "When am I supposed to start crying?" I'm like, "This is
Yeah.
not a suicide letter.
Right.
I never have been alarmed about these things. So why am I supposed to realize that my dad's going to go do this? I had no idea. Don't you think I would stop him? Absolutely.
we're going
My
to.
dad, I would have called the cops.
Right. We're going to do our best to educate people about your case and do our best to make noise and shine light. I think Aaron had a question. We're running out of time.
I just wondered what country they left to go to.
Nicaragua
Okay.
was
Very-
the last country that they were in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Amy, I want you to know this is our first time to talk on the phone. We love you. We do believe your innocence, and we're going to do our best to
Thank you so much.
to encourage people to investigate your case.
Thank you. I love you guys too, and I'll be calling back another day soon. I thank
Okay.
you guys so much for all your love and support. God
Okay.
bless you all.
God bless
Thank
you, Amy. Take care.
All right. Take care. God bless.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Aaron. Bye-bye.
All right. That is Amy Gonzalez, the first person in America, along with her brother and mother, who's now died in prison in 2016 of interstate cyber stalking. Now, I'm going to read to you a core links that I also just got from Amy about 15 minutes ago, and this is in response to Noelle Evans' questions, and I think it's important because Amy has more time to respond to those questions when she's writing, everything down. So the first question had to do with the dad's letter, right? The dad wrote one letter, not letters. It wasn't a correspondence back and forth. The dad wrote one letter, and I guess it was to Amy Gonzalez, and the prosecution made a huge deal out of this letter because it stated that let's celebrate to WB, which is Christine Belford's nickname, last days. And this is what Amy had to write about that. And what I had previously said, and Amy had concluded as well, or corroborated, is that you can say, let's celebrate to somebody's last days. Keep in mind, that's not Amy's statement. All she's doing is like reading a letter that was left by her dad. Keep in mind, Amy is the one who's sitting in prison for the rest of her life. And so why are we holding Amy accountable for what her dad did? And how can Amy know exactly what her dad is thinking anyway? But here's what Amy responded to this letter that everybody makes a big deal about that her dad wrote. Rudy, that is exactly how I took my dad's letter. In other words, that it would be Amy's last days with full custody. David was filing a nunc pro tunc, back to the beginning, petition with the courts regarding his conviction for kidnapping and also for termination of parental rights so that he could father his children again. I absolutely took that letter to mean that CB's last days having full custody of the children because David was trying so hard to get his parental rights back. And that is what we supported. David being a father again to the little girls that he loves so much, not murder. So the bottom line is that Amy had no reason to believe from that one letter that her dad, Thomas, is going to go on a murdering rampage. And to hold Amy accountable for what her dad did is not even biblical, and it's not right. Now, the second thing is in regards to, is there any corroborating evidence, or what about the abuse of the children? Does Amy still believe that there was abuse? And keep in mind that Amy and her mother each passed not just one lie detector each, but 2 lie detectors each. And here's what Amy wrote about whether she still believes the children were abused. Even though the courts say that there is no basis for abuse, yes, I still believe it because I lived it and I saw what I saw, and that will never be erased from my mind, no matter what the courts say. I watched food being thrown on the floor for my autistic niece to eat. I heard the comments, "Take the damn kids." I heard the comments out of my niece's mouth regarding abuse, and I also witnessed them crying and running away from their mother for court-ordered visits, recorded on tape, provided to my lawyer, a reporter, and sent to judges. I've been told that I need to say that I believe that the abuse never happened. But how can I say that when I truly believe that something terribly wrong was going on? Why would I take a polygraph twice if I didn't believe it and pass it? Just like our lawyers during our trial were referring to the FBI taking polygraphs in their hiring process. But it wasn't all right for us to take one and pass it as well? That is a double standard. What is good for them is good for me too. Why would my husband verify things that he heard and witnessed from my niece? I absolutely wish it wasn't true, but I can't erase what I have seen for myself, and trust me, I would never make these things up in my own mind. I would never want that to actually happen to any of my nieces or to any children, for any child for that matter. I hear so many women in here that say that they don't even tell their family until they are adults, if they tell anyone at all. So that was Amy responding to the question if she still believes the children were abused. And then the third part of the question that Noel had is, how come the children didn't testify they were abused at court? And here's what Amy said. I know that my niece lived with her mother from 2009 up until her death in 2013. If I lived with someone that abused me, I would absolutely feel intimidated. But I just can't say how she felt because I don't know. I know that my niece told my husband and myself that she had a secret with mommy, and if she ever told mommy, would go to jail. That is one of the reasons why I tried to call my niece back after she contacted me on 11/3/11, because I felt like maybe she was trying to reach out to me, not just talk to me, but maybe she needed my help. I just don't know. And then Amy writes to Noel, thank you for your interest and being open-minded to both sides of the story. I will be honest with every question that you ask me and will respond to them as soon as I can. It is a little harder to respond from here because our email system is a few hours behind. Thank you and God bless. Now, this was our very first phone call with Amy. Keep in mind, Amy doesn't know me from Adam, right? We're just two people out here that wrote her a letter in prison, and I'm trying to remember how we found out about her. I think it was another prisoner. Matter of fact, I do recall now, it was another prisoner in Elaine Brown's prison who suggested that Amy write to us, and she did, and I wrote to her back. So that's how we initially found out about Amy Gonzalez, the first interstate cyberstalker in America, sentenced to life in prison. Now, I believe Amy's case is important to all of America, and that this is something we should fully understand what our government is doing, putting the daughter and the son and the wife of the man who murdered somebody in prison for the rest of their life. Now, also I want to say that when Amy called tonight, that 15 minutes goes by so quick, and it's so difficult to get in all the crucial information that needs to be talked about. And so you have to realize how precious these calls are, and you have to make the most of it. Now, I want to have more calls, and I want to have Amy to have the freedom to really tell her story in a way that she feels is appropriate and not be censored or silenced by the United States government, who have a vested interest in keeping her in prison and to make a monster out of her. I can tell you that the prosecutors who went out and had a big celebratory dinner probably received a $25,000 cash reward. We have the United States statute code that indicates if you, put somebody in prison and save the government a lot of, work, or it's mentioned in the book Miracle in Atlanta by Pat Shannon. It gives a specific code that judges and prosecutors can be rewarded for their work of convicting, big time defendants, high profile defendants. And so it's very likely, at least in my mind, that they got big cash rewards and they went to a celebratory dinner. Now, in order to protect their jobs and to protect their prestige and their cash rewards that they got, Amy has to remain a monster. They're not going to let Amy tell her story, so they're going to work and try to find out ways to stop her from calling me, to stop her from communicating with us, because I believe that Amy can answer questions that are raised about her guilt, and in such a way that many of us will question, what in the world is this lady, 26-year-old nurse, who has just had a concern for the safety of the children, what in the world is she doing sitting in prison for the rest of her life because her dad decided to murder somebody, murder two people? And anyway, you want to say anything, Aaron, before I... No? Okay, all right, that's all. If you have questions, I highly encourage you to write a letter to Amy in prison. She's in a Fort Worth prison, and we'll have her address on the screen. We've also created a web page on yearofjubilee.com. Jubilee is spelled with one E, just like it's spelled in the King James Bible, lowercase /Amy, A-M-Y. She's written 2 letters to us. One is about 42 pages. The other one is about 52 pages. And I encourage you to download those letters and educate yourself and help us advocate for Amy. I don't believe she should be in prison. And thank you for your time. The King James Bible is the perfect Word of God. You can hold it in your hand, read it, and apply it to your life.